I'll just turn off the particles for a second just so we don't get that. If I turn on the range indicator, you can see that our force on the feet is up to full strength up to this region here. You can see it's pretty much exactly the same size as the icon. And from there on it falls off quite rapidly. If you look at the strength of this particular wind, you can see it's negative, so it's actually sucking the particles inwards. And you can see I'm using turbulence as well, so as it sucks the particles up, it makes them more turbulent. And this is more sort of realistic than maybe having the feet, blow the dust away, because the dust there would be a sort of suction as a foot is actually pulled off the ground, so you get this sort of lifting of the dust, and this is what this force does. So I'll just turn on the particles again, and we'll just scrub through. So there you go, the foot comes down, it generates all this dust in here. The dust is held in here, it doesn't do anything, it's dormant basically until the point that we need it, and that point is when the foot actually gets lifted off the ground again. And at that point you can see the dust gets pulled off the ground, and then it gets lifted up into the air, and then at that point, as the foot pulls away from it rather rapidly, it then falls outside of the range of the foot suction, and it's allowed to blow away in the wind, which you can see here. Now, you could probably improve this effect by, as I said earlier, basically putting more space warps into the scene for the wind. At the moment I'm just using one, and that means that the actual wind has a sort of wavy effect as it's blown away. Sorry, the dust has a sort of wavy effect on it as it's blown away by the wind. And if you put another wind space warp into the scene, it wouldn't have to work as a wind. It could probably work as just a turbulence effect, and that would give a sort of slightly more maybe naturalistic motion to the wind. So if we play here, you'll see that there goes the wind, and there goes the dust, and it gets blown off in that direction. And it would be just simply a case of getting this space warp, maybe copying it, pop it over here, put its strength down here. You can see at the moment it's got a very large wavy wind, so you could just increase the scale, and obviously that'll make the effect more granular. Keep the strength maybe the same, and then it would just be a case of adding it either to the side wind. You could probably just add it in here, and that would just give you, as I said, a slightly more granular effect to your wind on your particles. So I'll just clear the cache and just let that play. So that's basically it for this effect. As I said, it's quite simple. You can see all you're really doing is you're setting up the feet, placing on these seed particles. When those feet collide with the ground, it then generates dust, a body of dust from those seed particles. The seed particles are kept, they're just always kept on the feet, ready to generate dust wherever they go. Then these seed dust particles, they lie dormant until they're actually pulled back through a deflector again, and it's at that point that they become active as dust in the scene. And you can see it's at that point that we do a multiplication on them, so we have a lot more of them, because obviously we want to have a much more dust, and that multiplication is purely down to artistic look. Then we apply all these various forces. We've got wind blowing the dust, we've got drag to slow the dust down so it doesn't get too fast, we've got turbulence on the wind, and as you saw here, I've just actually added another turbulence effect. And then we've got the foot, which actually sucks the dust off the ground. That's the first thing that it does. I did actually try doing this effect originally using another event, just to do the foot sucking the dust off the ground, but in the end I decided that actually wasn't needed. But if you find that your dust effect isn't looking realistic enough, you could actually do that. And another thing you could do is maybe you could have it so that let's say there was a wind on the feet as well, which actually blew the dust away as well, so that as the foot approaches the dust, it would actually displace the dust out of the way as well. That might be quite useful. That might be a little bit more realistic. So you could do that. You could actually have it so that when the foot comes off the ground, you have a suction event, and basically within that event you have these wind space warps, which you can see on the feet here. You can actually have them just suck the dust off the ground, maybe have some of the wind effect in there, but maybe at a reduced level. And then after, let's say, a random number of frames, you could actually have the dust sent on to another event, and that's where you have the main wind effect put into place. And in that event as well, you could also have quite a tight number of small wind forces around the feet, and that's just to move the dust out of the way when the foot approaches. Another thing you could do obviously is, have more complex collision objects on the character, so that obviously in this case we've just got these sort of phantom feet, but you could have obviously have simple collision objects on the character to just push the dust out of the way when the character walks through it. And the other thing obviously you could do is you could have the dust interact with your scene, so you could have collision objects in your scene and you could have the dust blow around walls, and so forth. So that's it for the automatic footstep system, which as we can see is very useful for producing dust. Very easily could be adapted to do water, water splashes and so forth. We're going to move on now and look at our next effect, which is a reforming text effect, where we have a logo. We have particles placed all over the logo explodes outwards, and then we have the particles swirl around and come in and reform in a different shape.